Good morning, everybody. This is Martin Gershon, and I'm here today with the BetterHealth Healthcare and Innovation Series. It's a series that focuses in on incredible technologies and the intersection of science, medicine, technology, and most importantly, people. We look at technology as a way to solve real problems for real people, and I am thrilled to have two incredible people who share in that vision today. First, an amazing entrepreneur, Eli Ben-Joseph, who will tell you about his story, how he built this incredible company, Regard, alongside and with partnership with an amazing world-class investor, Matt Kozlov, who is the managing director of Techstars LA, which focuses in on healthcare as well as space. Techstars, just in brief, has invested over $500 million dollars in companies that are now worth over $2 billion. Dollars. And Eli comes from a background of both medicine and science. And he will tell you a little bit about his experiences in MIT and Stanford, but most importantly, he will tell you about his vision, about why he's doing what he's doing, some of the problems, and some of the incredible experiences with partners like UCSF and Nuance, which is a Microsoft company. So, without further ado, let me tell you a little bit, just as a way to introduce this, about the passion that I have and that Endeavor Life Science has for working with people like Matt and Eli. I am a physician by training. I have always been in healthcare. I am a former FDA attorney and I ran a clinical research organization and did several startups. And I've had the good fortune of meeting incredible partners like Capgemini, and I'm currently the director of entrepreneurship and the chief innovation and investment officer at McGill University. This gives me an incredible chance to meet with amazing people like Matt and Eli and to bring their story to you about real life problems that are going to impact you as a person. So, first, let me strongly suggest that this is an interactive webinar. That if you have any questions, if you have any thoughts, we will answer every one of them, whether it's today or in the coming days to come. We will be able to monitor those and get back to you. We also have the ability to send you emails if you subscribe at gershoncapital.com. Let me first turn it over to Matt. Matt met Eli some years ago. And what I would like to do is for Matt to tell us a little bit about himself, a little bit about Techstars, and a focus on their philosophy, which Endeavor subscribes to, which is mentorship leads the way. Partnership is critical even in the earliest stages, and intuition plays a huge role in making good decisions as an investor. So, Matt, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself and some of these touch points, that would be a fantastic start.
Yes, absolutely. So thanks for having us on. I'm really excited to be here with one of my favorite CEOs of one of my favorite companies, who I met before they, I think, even written a single line of code. And so we're really proud of the progress Regard has made. They actually used to be called Health Tensor when we first met them. As you mentioned, Techstars is one of the most active seed stage investors in the world. We've invested in over 3,000 companies, and their combined market cap is over $96 billion with a B. I think we have over 30 unicorns at this point. And healthcare has emerged for us over the last, I'd say, 6 or 7 years since I joined the firm as one of our most exciting and singularly strong focus points as an industry. We launched our first healthcare focused program with Cedars-Sinai in 2016. Since then, we've invested in several hundred healthcare startups. The program that we ran with Cedars was very focused on provider focused healthcare companies, which includes health systems, physician groups, academic medical centers. But we also launched a program with United Healthcare that focuses on payers. We also run a program with Pivotal Ventures, which is Melinda Gates' foundation, focused on elder care and longevity. And we also run a program in North Texas focused on physical health and rehabilitation. And we are starting a new program in March that will actually be bringing together many of our past partners and some new partners as well here in Los Angeles, which will be a new Techstars healthcare program in partnership with Cedars-Sinai, UC Irvine, United Healthcare, and Point 32 Health, which is a very large and successful plan in the New England region that will be focused on both payers and providers and cutting edge technologies that help improve patient care and access to care. The philosophy of Techstars, as you mentioned, is we believe that we can help founders achieve several years of commercial growth in just 13 weeks and set them on an entirely new trajectory for the duration of their business by running them through this intense 13-week program that really centers around going as fast as possible with help from world-class mentors. So the programs we run typically have 200 to 300 very successful entrepreneurs, senior executives from the industry, generalists who are very passionate about helping early stage companies, whether it's with go-to-market strategy, fundraising, product design, sales strategy, business development. And our philosophy is that if you surround world-class entrepreneurs who are building incredible companies, who are passionate and grit and have the grit, have the hunger, have the coachability and humility to take all of this incredible help from these incredible people, they're going to do amazing things and move very, very quickly. And I think Regard Health is an incredible example of that. So we met Eli, Nate, and Thomas when they were just starting out. They had a bunch of different ideas of directions they could take the company in. And we were confident that with the support of our partners at Cedars-Sinai and our mentors and our alumni, they'd be able to figure out an incredibly compelling business, even if they didn't really have a clear idea of what that might be coming in, because we just saw incredible potential for this team, both their business skills, their humility, coachability, their passion for the area, and their technical skills. And it's probably a good time to hand it over to Eli to hear who they are and what their journey has been, and how we played a role along the journey. But as I think everyone on this call probably knows, healthcare is hard. We're investing in companies with the expectation that this is going to be a long journey, but one that is going to create enormous impact for patients and monetary value for investors. But we're not going into healthcare and investing in healthcare companies because we're expecting rapid commercial success quickly and then a quick flip or exit. That's not the game that we play when we're working in healthcare.
Let me just add before we flip it over to Eli how much Endeavor and our partners Capgemini and McGill support the core philosophy. And I'm proud to say that I am a mentor for Techstars. I find that it is absolutely essential to be able, as an investor, to understand that early stage investors invest in people. And, in this day and age, we've all been through the same experience with COVID. It's all made us realize that we're vulnerable, that we're human beings. That personal touch, that personal pivot from, let's say, the past 20 years where CEOs were asked to do different things than they are asked to do now. And there were some questionable ethical standards as they captured market share above ethical values. Those days, fortunately, are gone. And now we're looking to people like Eli, who have a mission-driven focus, who are leaders with a different mindset. They're cut from a different cloth. They're mission-driven to help people. And we believe that in order to do that, that is a collaborative effort as opposed to win or lose mentality. And so I would love for Eli to tell us a little bit about how he evolved in terms of his vision, started out as a piece of clay and now is this beautiful sculpture that's actually in hospitals, actually helping people and growing. So Eli, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about your partners. Obviously, you couldn't do this by yourself. And then your vision for the future about how you're using these mentors and advisors and colleagues to grow the company.
Sure. Thank you both for the intro and for setting this up. So just a little bit of me. My name is Eli. I'm one of the founders and the CEO of Regard. So how did we start this thing? I like to go all the way back to the early days of my own life. I grew up loving computers. Some of my first memories were playing SimCity 2000 on my dad's PC in the early 90s. And that kind of translated to learning how to code at age 12, building PCs in high school, LAN parties, the usual nerd stuff. And I was lucky enough to get into MIT after high school, but I actually pushed away computers in college. I spent some time, working in software engineering in high school, and going into college, I thought, I don't think I want to stare at a computer screen all day for my 9 to 5. And here we are staring at screens all day. So I ended up being pre-med and studied bioengineering at MIT. And I took the MCAT. So did my two other co-founders. All three of us were pre-med. All three of us took the MCAT. All three of us pulled out of the med school application process. And I ended up going to grad school at Stanford, studying management and computer science to kind of get back in touch with my love of technology. And when the three of us, Nate Thomas and I, met right after grad school, we kind of bonded over this similar path that we were on, where we all were going to med school. We all decided to not. And when we reflected on that, it was because during our time shadowing doctors in hospitals, we found that a lot of them weren't very happy. And it was as simple as that. It's hard to dedicate so much time to a career where a lot of people didn't seem necessarily happy with their jobs. So we dug into that. My grandfather was a physician and he loved his job. And most of my friends who are in the medical space now have a mixed relationship with it. And something has happened from 2 generations ago to now where, you see it in the news, burnout is at an all-time high for people in medicine. 20% of the clinical workforce quit in the last 2 years. It's not sustainable. If you look at the trajectories of our population growth in this country and in the world, we need more people going into medicine, not quitting it. And when we thought that this was an interesting problem to solve. Why is this happening? And what we found is that the technology that doctors and nurses have access to is really outdated. Most physicians will tell you that the electronic medical record is one of the worst parts of their day. They'll tell you that, their days are now burdened with administrative tasks where for every hour they see a patient, they need to spend 2 hours on their computer. So we thought, okay, well, what does the doctor of the future look like? What does medicine look like in 20, 30, 50 years? And to us, we have a strong belief that medicine will be mostly algorithmic, will be mostly done by computation, and with the touch of human hands to kind of put the final pieces on and do high level problem solving. So we set out to create products that really enhance and enable what doctors and nurses do in their day-to-day versus build software that slows them down and optimizes on the revenue. Our whole hypothesis is that if you make the heart of medicine, the doctors and nurses, better at their jobs and amplify their abilities with technology, then you'll see benefits in better finances, better patient care, and reduced burnout. And now, 6 years into starting this business, live in almost 30 hospitals, hundreds of doctors on the product, we're seeing that come true. And I think this is truly the next evolution in the way medicine will be done.
Fantastic. Let me talk a little bit with you about some of the core technology, because that is important. It is my strong belief and the belief of our partners in Endeavor that technology and the wow factor, which was really the calling card for the past 20 years is no longer really the focus. The focus is useful technology. The focus is changing things for the better for communities, and particularly in healthcare, to create a healthier world. So I hear in your story this very personal account about impacting people's lives. I'd like you to talk to me about this intersection between AI, science, technology, and the personal experience. And one of the things I would say is that Forbes has outlined this in a recent article, which I would focus people to take a look at. Bringing Medicine into the Modern Era was the title of the article, and I think it says it all.
Yeah, look, the thing about AI technology is that, it's obviously getting very good, but the most important thing is that it's actually useful and that it's helpful. Like you said, it can't just be some flashy thing where you do a demo and people go, wow. At the end of the day, it needs to actually provide hard value, hard ROI. So when we started building this, that was always in our mind, to build products that physicians are going to love. And that has been our grounding truth since we started this, was we want to create products that the doctors and nurses who use this will immediately understand the value. They won't see it as some other software that's built for, coding or billing, and that it's something that's built for them to do their jobs better. And so our technology, it isn't anything super fancy, but it's super useful. And I think that's what's given us the success that we've had so far, is that when hospital administrators look to write us very large checks to pay for our product, they need to see that it drives value. It can't just be something that someone likes to use or that it wants to use, that they think looks cool, but it has to actually be tied to something measurable that drives value. And for us, that's time savings, and that's also increased dollars for the hospital.
That's incredible. I want to just take a second to shout out to people who are watching, because I know that this is a personal encounter. So I want to thank Marion Spears and Jenny Fernandez, Nikhil Joshi for signing on from various locations. I want to thank Jabi John. I see a lot of comments here from people. You've already inspired people. They're very curious about some of the things that we've just touched upon. And I think one of the things is, what are some of the hurdles that you've seen as you have brought this vision to bear? I'm sure that there are a lot of naysayers. You've had to change mindsets. And that is a very leadership-directed focus. And I am particularly focused on the notion of, what does the new leader look like? It's no longer a leader that represents Uber. It's a leader that represents mission-driven community needs. So if you could speak to a little bit about, how you have worked with Matt and some of your colleagues and overcome some of the things which have really raised your game to being a leader, that would be helpful.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like Matt mentioned, we were so different when we started this 6 years ago. I think we were very fresh, very green. And something that, Matt and the Techstars group really helped drill into us in the early days was to be very mission driven and mission centric, and to stick with that. And the mentors that they provided us helped us learn a lot of that in the early days. So, that is one thing I'll say that we have stuck to, is that the vision hasn't changed really since we came out of the Techstars program. And we picked something that is something that people can get passionate about, that they can resonate with. And that has always been, again, our guiding light since we started this, is create products that doctors and nurses will love to use, and that betters the way that medicine is done. When we started this business, we didn't want to create something that just gets sold in 3 years. That wasn't interesting to us. We wanted to create something that, if successful, would have a fundamental impact on something in the way the world works. And this is what we found.
Marion Spears Carr agrees with you by saying mission alignment is absolutely critical. And I would say, if we could talk a little bit about, some of the important people in that mission-driven process, because I've started a number of companies. I've run up the mountain as fast and as hard as I can. And I've learned over the years that a collaborative effort allows you to run faster, more directed, more efficient, and it just feels better, and that component of really enjoying the process is also something that's important. So some of the metrics that you use, I'm sure, have impressed fellow mentors, advisors, and corporate collaborators. So first, let's take a look a little bit about those metrics.
Martin, could I chime in and just emphasize something you said there and comment on, from our experience around the role of partnerships in creating great products? Because I think healthcare is unique versus a lot of other B2B SaaS industries where it's easy to talk to your customer, find out about their problems, and then go off and build the software that meets their solution. That's not easy in healthcare. Physicians are really busy. The IT groups in hospitals, they have a million priorities, especially given everything that's happened over the last 3 years. And so I think a lot of entrepreneurs who are new to healthcare have a lot of maybe incorrect assumptions around, oh, we'll just do a pilot, we'll get our first customers, they'll pay, and then we'll go from there, and it's not going to be that hard. And they think it's going to be quick, and they think that they, because they're incredibly great technologists, that they're going to have no problem building a great solution. And the truth is, it's not that simple. In fact, everything takes longer, and everything takes really close partnerships with health systems, especially if you're doing something in AI that requires training data, that requires access to patient records, whether it's anonymized or identified. And I think that hearing, some of the formation stage work that Regard has done to get to where they are, they've been working so hard and so long in partnership with such incredible partners. We've already mentioned Cedars-Sinai, but Torrance Memorial, I don't know if this company would be in existence without some of the support that they had there. And I think just hearing some of the, how Regard made it, and the role of these partnerships and specific people and the complexity, especially AI in healthcare, it's really hard. So I'd love to, if Eli, if you could just talk about your story, how did this come to be?
Yes.
How long did it take for you to even have a product that you could start selling?
Yeah, I'd love to. Yes, it is very difficult. It took 3 years from when we figured out what we wanted to build to actually get to launch it. So to tell a few stories, the first partnership we had was the Cedars-Sinai Techstars accelerator. And in the early days, like Matt said in the beginning, we didn't know what we wanted to do. We just knew we knew there was an opportunity to use data, to use AI technologies to advance medicine. We ended up finding this particular angle, which is automating a lot of what the physician has to do in their note writing process and diagnostic process. And after the program, 13 weeks is not enough to build healthcare software. So we actually extended our partnership with Cedars-Sinai and continued to develop with them for another 6 months afterwards. And because of that partnership with Cedars-Sinai, that opened the door to their affiliate hospital, Torrance Memorial. And we spent, 2 years figuring out a lot of things. We needed to build a product. This is something that is used on real patients every single day. I tell my team a lot that what we're building is more like building a rocket than it is like building an app. When you're building a rocket, it's very complicated. You only get a few chances, and if you mess up, people could die. And that's the same thing with our technology. It's very complicated. You're only going to get maybe one shot to prove that you can do it. And if you mess up, people could die. So the R&D process took about 3 years. And, we had to learn how to integrate with a medical record. The first time we did an integration with a medical record, it took us over a year. And we had to convince this hospital that has, to partner with us. We were just 3-4 people. We had no track record. Even that alone took 6 months. But luckily, we partnered with someone at Torrance who was a visionary and believed in this and helped us navigate the politics of a hospital. And I'll tell you, hospitals, health systems, the politics are insane. It's probably the number one reason startups in this space die, is because they can't navigate the politics of hospitals. Once we got into Torrance, learning how to integrate with the medical record, first time took us a year. Now we do it in 3 weeks. When we first launched, even that took some time. We had just getting access to being used on the floor with real patients took about a year. And then we could start to iterate. Then we could start to do proper product research and development. But yeah, the partnerships with Cedars-Sinai and Techstars, the partnerships with Torrance Memorial, without them, we would not be where we are today. Absolutely.
That's fantastic.
And once you get in with one hospital, you can expand to others because you have a reference point. The 0 to 1 is the hardest thing.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've done several startups, and the way to really break the ice is through one successful story with a group of people or an individual that are respected in the community, because this healthcare is, as Matt said, a very, very complicated and difficult arena, but it doesn't have to be. If you understand the roadmap, and if you understand a little bit about the regulatory environment and some of the politics, then you can find allies who can help you through this process. Matt clearly has been one. Techstars has been one. I'd like to talk a little bit about one of the people that I would imagine has been incredibly useful, which is a person who is the former president and CEO of UCSF, a major leader in the local area, a major leader in the nation, that brings into your field of vision and your partnership capabilities many players. And I want to talk about two aspects of this. The first is the knowledge that you gain as a business person and avoiding mistakes and being and being efficient and effective in what you do, building teams of people. And the second is what I consider, as an investor and as an advisor, the go-to-market strategies and the ability to be able to understand what it is that people need and how to develop those bespoke strategies that lead to reduced risk in investment. And so looking at a company like Nuance, which obviously your board member is involved with at a very senior level, to me, it speaks of de-risking this incredible investment, because the likelihood of you leading down the road where some type of collaborative effort leads to some type of investment and partnership seems highly likely. So I'd like you to speak to this longer term vision. We've talked about the starting point where there's all trials and tribulations. Now you're really embedded. You have, proof that your product is effective in multiple hospitals. You have these leaders, mentors, and advisors on the board level. Growth strategy is the next step leading towards some type of scaling, commercializing, and exit.
Yeah, Mark has been a great partner. We've been working with him for a year now, and we are currently in a phase, like you said, we're out of the early stage, and we're now moving towards growth stage. We know our product works. We know that people want to use it. We know that hospitals are willing to pay for it. And how do we get this in the hands of everyone as fast as possible? And something that me and my two co-founders are not as strong in, we don't have the experience in, is selling, experience selling, being at the high level administrative side in a health system. That's more, we're technologists by heart. We have physicians on our team that help us with the clinical side, but we needed advice on how do we make this appealing at the broader level. And what makes our product tricky to sell is that the users of our product, the doctors and nurses, are not the ones who buy the product. It's the CIOs, it's the chief medical officers. They're the ones who buy it. And Mark has helped us really understand what we need to do to position our technology, our marketing, to be able to sell to both sides.
Absolutely. There was a question out here. During this journey, has there been a time where you thought about quitting?
So many times.
Can you
Yeah.
speak a little bit about that? And maybe Matt, you can also chime in about, late night calls perhaps and some anxiety. Look, I've started many companies and I know that it's very, very difficult. And sometimes you question, am I doing the right thing? Is this in my mind, or is there a real need out there? And ultimately, I think the strength of being in healthcare is two things. One is we know that there's tremendous liquidity that's coming into the market at a time of economic downturn. We know that there's 10x liquidity coming into healthcare compared to other sectors. And we know, most importantly, that big tech is an incredible catalyst with early, investments and clear exit strategies. So being all that, it doesn't really comfort you when you're still questioning yourself. And those are personal experiences. Perhaps you can share a couple.
Yeah, I mean, it changes over time. It's hard. It's really hard. Like starting a company is one of the hardest things you can do, I think. And the challenges change. In the early days, it's you'll have an existential crisis with your co-founders where you're like, what are we doing? Are we even doing the right thing? Who even knows if this is going to work? As you evolve, as you start learning, okay, this is working, people want this, it changes to, is this going to be big enough? Are we going to grow fast enough? You start thinking about, we have 50 employees, and I think about how I'm responsible for their lives now in a way, in their careers, and that's changed the dynamic. But what's kept me going is that it's the mission at the end of the day. It's so exciting. If this is successful, it really will revolutionize the way medicine is practiced. The way medicine has been practiced hasn't changed too much, and it really hasn't been assisted too much by software technology in particular. So that's one thing that keeps me going. The other thing is my co-founders. There's times where when I'm feeling a little bit more negative, the others are positive, and when they're negative, I'm positive. And that having a co-founder is so critical because of that. Honestly, it's probably the main reason you need to have co-founders is to get you through the dark times. I have a few friends that are solo founders. I don't know how they do it. It's really impressive. And the other thing is whenever I start thinking like, maybe I should, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through this? And I think about, well, what would happen if I quit? Let's say I quit, or we sell the company early, whatever it is. And then what would I do? I take 6 months off, maybe a year, travel a little bit, and then do the same thing again. Like this is the exciting stuff to me. This is what I want to do with my life. So I just be back to where I was. So why am I quitting then? Just keep going. Yeah. I'm not done yet.
The best entrepreneurs are unhireable, to be honest. They don't want to work for anyone. They can't do a 9-to-5 job. They strive in the struggle. And I think Eli and Nate and Thomas, I mean, you guys had some professional experience. Well, I know, it's not like you started the company when you were 40. You were quite young when you started it. But the best entrepreneurs learn and adapt as the company grows and the needs and the challenges of the company become more complex. And the best founders continue to grow and evolve and mature as their company evolves and matures. And in some cases, they don't, and that's fine too. A lot of the best CEOs of the best tech companies in the world, came in at different stages, and the founders stayed involved, but they weren't necessarily, the CEO the entire time through. And we make it very clear to our founders when we invest in them. Eli, you probably remember in our first interview, we say like, how will you know when you're no longer the right person for the to be the CEO, and will you do what's best for the company, or are you going to do what's best for you? And we've been fortunate that a lot of our founders do mature and grow into it, but we also find that sometimes the founder is better in another position, and we help bring in someone else. And every company and every founder is different. We find a lot of founders don't want to be the CEO past Series A, Series B. They want to be in the talking to customers. They want to be product strategy. I think you look at Google and you realize like, wow, Eric Schmidt had a pretty outsized impact on helping Google go to the next level, and it's fine.
Amazing. I want to shift a little bit and I want to dial down to the next level. I really want to understand the nitty gritty of your vision. It's really about using AI to automate patient, doctor, electronic healthcare records, and it has a purpose. So I'd like you to talk about that purpose. There are some numbers that you've associated with this, but this to me is the perfect integration of science and human needs. Doctors are overworked. Their anxiety level is through the roof. 63%, according to your numbers, are feeling stress and anxiety, and the chance of losing those healthcare providers, including nursing and physician assistants and nursing assistants, is really at a core of what you're doing. So I'd like you to speak to a little bit about the technology, but also about the vision and how that is going to ripple effect over the years to improve our healthcare system. I think particularly by giving more time to physicians and other healthcare providers to do the most important thing that they do: develop authentic connections and empathy with their patients so they can make better decisions. And you have a quote here, which I think really says it all. The result drives more efficient and higher quality notes that enhance patient safety by ensuring all diagnoses are uncovered, reduces physician burnout, and drives revenue. So perhaps you can speak to this because I think this is an important point.
Yeah, it goes back to what I said in the very beginning, which is that something has changed in the last couple of generations of people practicing medicine. In the 70s, when my grandfather was practicing, it was a more simple time. He'd jot some notes down on paper, hand it off, and things would get done, and that was it. Now, there's been two trends that have been pushing against physicians being able to be with their patients and operate at the top of their license. One trend is the amount of data that they have to go through. There's been an explosion in data that's collected, which I think is a good thing if it's used the right way. But the way that EMRs are built today, it's actually slowing them down because there's so many different ways to go through data, and it's not designed in a way that's physician-centric. The second trend is administrative burden between requirements from the government, from hospitals or health systems. The amount of administrative burden placed on the shoulders of physicians is incredible. If a hospital, the old way of thinking is, hey, we need to get more revenue out of our patient billing. So we're going to install a software that sits after the discharge, and it's going to pester our physicians and ask them to change the notes after discharge and slow them down in their day. But if it makes us $20 more, it's worth it. Doesn't matter what the physicians think. That is backwards. That is old generation. That is not the way of the future. And when we started this, we again believe that, and we're seeing now that if you build technology that works in conjunction with doctors and nurses, that amplifies their abilities, that lets the computer do what it does best, which is storing data, running algorithms, and frees up the physician to do what they do best, which is problem solving and connecting to people, then you're moving towards the true path of medicine of the future. And that's how that all ties in.
Fantastic. There's a couple OKRs here, that I just want to very, very briefly talk about. You're talking about some metrics that people can follow, and metrics are important because this is a change in mindset. Can you just speak a little bit about some of the data that you found, in this rollout in these hospitals that you're working with?
Yeah, we love looking at data, and there's three KPIs that we can measure very distinctly. One is time savings. So both Epic and Cerner in the hospitals have time tracking tools, and we could actually do test versus control studies. And we found that doctors using our product were faster because it kind of synthesized a lot of the data analysis for them instantaneously. On the diagnostic side, that's our measurement for just usage. We're actually now over 1 million diagnoses made on behalf of physicians, which is really cool. So that just allows us to track internally the usage. And then the third KPI is ROI for the hospitals. So because we can uncover medical conditions that are buried deep in the data, that allows hospitals to bill at a higher level, which allows them to get paid better. So by optimizing that workflow, you save physicians time and also generate revenue for the hospital.
So it's kind of a flywheel.
Yeah.
You know, just one thing kind of generates the other, and the momentum is continuous. Now that leads to my next question, and perhaps this is one for both you and Matt. You know, Matt, you have an incredible overview. You've seen so many companies over so many years. Where do you see Regard in 5 years? Who are the partners, and what are the ripple effects that the company is going to have on individuals? And I'll also open the same question up for Eli. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And what are the ripple effects, again, that your company is going to have on people, real people?
I mean, my dream for Eli and Regard is that they are a mandatory must-use tool for every physician in the country, and they are as dependent on Regard as they are on their iPhones, or in their life. It is ubiquitous. It is part of their daily task. Every new physician is trained on it from the day one they become a doctor, and they can't imagine life without it. And the financial impact for the CFOs of these health systems is immediate and obvious. And whether they're a public company or private spitting off a lot of cash, they are a household name for any physician.
And Eli, what's your vision?
I'm very much aligned with Matt. I think, regardless of the KPIs on time savings or dollars, the most important thing, the thing that makes me know that what we built here is important, is that we have hundreds of stories now from physicians who are using our product and have said, because I used Regard, I found something that I didn't know about this patient, and that dramatically changed the course of treatment. A medication that was stopped that shouldn't have been stopped, realizing that a medication wasn't started, realizing that a patient had a condition that was mentioned by a doctor 3 years ago that they didn't have time to see. Like Matt said, this needs to be in the hands of every physician. It creates better patient care. It creates a better practice for physicians. So very much aligned with what Matt was saying.
I think that really resonates with me personally. So when I was a child, I had very bad asthma. I could not do sports. I could not go outside. I read constantly, and I was really obsessed with understanding the body, medicine, science, and I threw myself into it. And, I fortunately had people around me who were able to amplify that and bring me in the right direction. So I appreciate, the personal quality that you've talked about, and I appreciate the journey that you've been on. Ultimately, I think we're all aligned with one thing. Reimagining a healthier world takes collaboration. Identifying the real problems, and you've identified some critical ones here. Physician burnout is huge. The time between the administrative burden and the actual care is completely out of balance. And the economics that are involved with this, and the outcomes that can be changed because of the focus on authenticity, empathy, diagnosis, and treatment algorithms, as opposed to paperwork, is a game changer. And I agree completely with Matt. I mean, this should be like the Kleenex, ubiquitous across the country, and it should be part of standard of care. And I would also say educational components of medical training. I would offer right now the idea that you may come as a guest speaker at your leisure to McGill Medical School to talk to some of the physicians to be about what it means to really be authentic, empathetic, spend time with patients. We have a simulation center at McGill, 17 rooms where we train physicians to talk to patients, to understand, to be empathetic and authentic. And I think, your words of experience and your vision would be really impactful. So I would urge you to think about that.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And I would say, we're running out of time here. It's been an incredible 45 minutes. But the thing that I really want to emphasize is that science, medicine, technology in and of itself is a silo. In order to bring that to bear, to have real life impact, means that we need to collaborate as human beings. COVID has taught us that we're fragile. COVID has taught us that we're all at the same level of vulnerability and that healthcare is really the number one issue. Coexisting with this is an incredible science, medicine, technology intersection that I've never seen in my life. And now big tech and corporate accelerators have really understood the need for bringing in entrepreneurs like yourself, who, as Matt said, are coachable, who can be resilient, who can be leaders of the future with your vision, and the ability to attract people represents leadership. And so what I would say here is, if we look at innovation and science and medicine in a holistic sense, it's to solve real problems. I am super proud to have both of you guys on here. I'm super proud, to be involved in a small way in helping Techstars. If there's anything that I can do personally to help Regard or you, Eli, I'm at your disposal, as are people within the ecosystem. And I would just, end this by saying that anybody who has any questions about any of this, who wants slide information, or wants access to some of the workshops that Endeavor and Capgemini and McGill provide to help solve companies' problems, to accelerate them, to help them towards the path of commercialization, very much in keeping with Techstars. And I would certainly open the offer to Techstars to have some of the mentors involved in these workshops, because it is about collaboration and it is about an ethical new paradigm. It's shifting from the last 20 years to the next 20 years, where we have to work together to solve these problems. I would open up to last comments from Matt and from Eli. I also want to thank Capgemini and McGill, and for our incredible audience. There's a ton of questions here. And I want to point out that we will be hosting this next Tuesday at noon, same time, same channel. Next week, we're going to be talking about a personal experience of mine. And I hope that you tune in for that, because there's a lot of information that I think will share some of the things that we're talking about here, but on a more personal basis. So are there any other thoughts that Matt or Eli you want to share with us? Please feel free.
Just an open call that if there are entrepreneurs who are, interested in building the next innovative, wildly successful healthcare company, we'd love to meet you. My email address is matt.kozlov@techstars.com. And if you're an investor who's interested in investing in the next Regard Health, or the next, cutting edge unicorn in healthcare, contact me as well. And if you're a health system who wants to work with great companies, or a payer, contact me. We have incredible portfolio companies. Regard is one of the best, but we have many others.
I can attest to Matt being one of the best investors I've ever met, and I would support everything he says, because one thing that I see from Matt is that he is persistent, he is loyal, and he has great intuition. So if you're fortunate enough to be able to tick those boxes with Matt, you're probably going to have a lifelong supporter and friend.
Thank you, Martin.
Thank you, Martin. Thanks for inviting me. No
Any
more.
thoughts?
I enjoyed this. Thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. Everybody, I want to say thank you. Please tune in. If you'd like to subscribe and get more information and updates about information, we are developing a subscription list. It is simply subscribe at gershoncapital.com, or you can also email me at the email you see here, martin@gershoncapital.com. We'll put you on the subscription list. We'll make introductions. Happy to share the slides and happy to share the video if you request it. I've had lots of requests from the former ones. It's been a pleasure, everyone. I hope everyone has a fantastic afternoon. Matt and Eli, I can't wait for our next conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Martin.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.